He fell right down the stairs.
Right down?
I wasn't gonna I didn't want to push him, but he was already kind of whoa, 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 whoa. So I helped him along a little bit.
Really?
I'm a good friend.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys?
Hey.
Welcome back to another episode of Records and Reels. Wonderful intro.
Yay.
This is episode 2.
2. We're in the same clothes because we shoot these a lot at a time.
Secrets!
But we also have a lamp, so listen, YouTube could be a YouTube store.
We could have just put this at the end of the month and been we filmed these separately.
Yes,
but
exactly.
No, back to back.
Yep.
This episode, we're continuing on in our series of early comedies.
Yep.
We're taking a look at the comic classic.
Yes.
Go ahead and tell them what it is.
Well, I think you should introduce it because this was your pick.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. All right. He just denied me. Did you see that? He denied me.
Yes, and?
This is the last thing I do safely. Haha, because we're talking about Harold Lloyd's seminal classic, Safety Last.
Yay.
Hold on, let me repeat that. Safety Last!
Safety Last!
There is an exclamation point. I made sure to write it in my
Safety
notes.
Last! Ready? Okay.
Why did we pick Safety Last? I'll tell you.
Please do. Why did we? Why did you?
Why did I pick Safety Last? So we had discussed a couple of different films to encapsulate in this comedy genre.
Mm-hmm.
We found it important to discuss, I guess you'd call them the three masters, the three silent masters.
Yep.
Those being, of course, Charlie Chaplin, who we touched on in the first episode.
Yep.
Harold Lloyd, of course.
Yep.
And then a subject for next time, or for a continuation of this theme, Buster Keaton.
Of course,
but
definitely.
Currently, we're going to talk about the Lloyd Man.
Yeah, I wore my my glasses that I always wear, but this time it works because we are paying homage to a little bit of Harold Lloyd there.
He kind of looks a little bit like Harold Lloyd.
Are you sure?
A little bit.
I don't know.
A little bit. Prettier.
Thank you.
Not as much lipstick.
Well, yeah, I mean, for film, you kind of had to, so.
So, let's talk a little bit about Harold Lloyd, how we first got introduced to Harold Lloyd. I'm a big fan of the show Futurama.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a character on there named Zoidberg, an alien space crab man.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out in one episode that he has a famous silent comedy uncle named Harold Zoid. Who I did not realize was a parody of Harold Lloyd at the time. Mm-hmm. Even has the glasses going on. So that was my first introduction. And then when I found out he was a real person, I was like, oh, that's funny to me now.
My first introduction to Harold Lloyd was in 7th grade. I read, where I looked at, because it's more of a graphic novel than a book, but The Invention of Hugo Cabret. Do you remember that book? I think people...
I never read it.
People have vague memories of that book.
Looked at it.
But there's a scene where the young man or the main character, Hugo, talks about that with his dad, he would go to see this movie, especially the one with the guy hanging onto the clock.
Iconic.
And so, that's where I first got it. And then also, I took, in college, I took a class called Golden Age of Comedy. And it was pretty much the silent era and the very first talkies of comedy.
Yes.
And this was a film that we studied immensely, so I really also enjoy this film as well.
I mean, if you're gonna talk about silent comedy, you kind of have to talk about Safety Last.
Yep. But yeah, there's some other great ones that Harold Lloyd did. I love The Freshman.
The Freshman's great.
It's one of my favorites.
I've only seen scenes from The Freshman, and I've only seen a few scenes from Speedy.
I've never seen Speedy, so I like The Freshman a lot.
The Freshman's fun, especially.
Of course.
I think probably the most iconic is football when he's playing football.
Yeah.
But who can beat Safety Last? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So let's dive right in.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, lead us off.
Safety Last came out in 1923.
Yep.
It starts
13 years before modern times, actually.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there you go. It's coming up on its 100th, 97 years ago.
Wow.
100th anniversary in theaters, which is
close.
Crazy that we're still talking about this film, but that's the lasting power of this film, of the comedy in it. Mm-hmm. Also, starts with a very morbid opening.
It does. The gag that's there.
The gag is essentially, you think Harold Lloyd, known in this film as the boy, which is funny because he's around 20-something.
Yep.
Clearly. It seems as if he's going to be hung. Because there's a noose-looking object.
Yeah. And there's bars.
And he's behind a jail cell. Or you assume so. He's actually at a train station.
Yeah. So funny.
So gaggy. But, these comedy geniuses, they just don't miss a chance to make a joke.
Exactly.
They squeeze the joke out of everything, and even if you think they're done with the joke, it might not be over yet. He's ready to go on the train, and he can't even make the train because he grabs a baby instead of his luggage, and then he gets
I just wanted to say that word, papoose.
And a little papoose. Then he hops on a truck, and then he gets on the train, of course.
Yep.
There's a lot of Harold Lloyd is a very physical man.
He is. It's very slapstick heavy, this film,
very slapstick
which I enjoy
heavy.
a lot.
Absolutely.
There's some great gags in there. So we go from there and we look at, was it Great Bend? Is that what's called? Great Bend?
Great Bend,
Great Bend, Oregon, right? Which is Oregon.
Yep. Where he's leaving his fiancée to hopefully make some money in the city.
Yep. What city though?
I was gonna say nondescript city.
Yeah, a nondescript city. I would equate
Seattle.
it to let's say Seattle.
Because it's Washington.
But I mean I would equate it to it's very much a clone of old time New York City.
Absolutely.
Or old time Chicago.
Especially the style of buildings that they have, the multi-tiered.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed. There are quite a bit of dialogue or title cards in this film. I did a running tally. I want to say I have around. Looks like 41 that I have.
41
not
including
cards. Title cards, just dialogue cards. So they're not used sparingly, but they're used when they need to be. Mm-hmm. They're used, and the way they're used, I enjoy the font. Usually with a silent film, it's a pretty standard font, or usually a pretty mundane font.
Yep.
But here we have a nice not cursive, but calligraphy of lettering.
Yep, especially capital letters.
Absolutely.
There's also a great way that he uses title cards to show distance.
Yes.
Especially at the very end of the
film.
film.
The very end, there's a character who's very far away.
Yep, and his title card is very small.
Exactly.
So you kind of get it. You kind of get the distance there.
He also uses, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, go for it.
He also uses dialogue very well in terms of dialect. There's lots of I coulda instead of I could have.
Yes.
Things of that nature. I had another one. Instead of and, some people would say and.
And that.
And I'll get them. Something like that.
And I'll pinch you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful, especially when you can use. Obviously, title cards they're necessary with silent films.
Especially with silent films, yep.
And if you can find a way to even make comedy out of that, if you can incorporate this. I guess you could call it immersion-shattering thing. Yep. If you can incorporate it into the world of the film, like Harold Lloyd does, it becomes even more fun. It feels like the title cards are in on the joke.
Of course it does.
And that it brings the audience even in further. So Harold Lloyd, he kind of plays himself, because his name is Harold?
Yeah, I would say he plays himself.
Yes.
He plays an exaggerated version of himself.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's all I can think of is when Harold Lloyd did this, or when Harold did that.
When we speak about Chaplin, we go, oh, the tramp, but here it's, oh, Harold.
Yeah.
Harold.
I mean, I'll still refer to Charlie as Charlie.
Absolutely, you know what I mean? But I think more, with Harold, you really don't have a choice.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
It's Harold, yeah.
Harold, we know him, Mr. Lloyd.
Christopher? Money!
So, unlike, speaking of the tramp, I'll do a little comparison. Unlike the tramp, who I described as a victim of circumstance, Harold Lloyd is more of an opportunist.
Yeah.
He sees opportunities to either further himself or to get himself out of trouble.
And he's also a big cynic.
Yes, absolutely.
He's a cynic.
He really is.
He's not naive.
No, he's not.
He knows, and
he's street smart, which is odd since he's from Great Bend, which is seemingly...
Every time he rolls his eyes, it's hilarious.
Exactly. And he knows, he's very aware of, social situations.
Exactly.
Unlike the tramp, who is more of a more straightforward character, who is more a consistent character. This is, not to say that Harold's not consistent, but he is consistently more... aware of his situation.
Exactly.
He tries to, like I said, he's an opportunist. He takes what he can get when he can get it.
Exactly.
And he's a goddamn liar.
He is a little con artist.
Yes, he really is.
Who tries his best because he
tries to keep it straight, but he knows that it doesn't always work that way. Yeah. So that's where that's what happens. Essentially, he is in the city trying to make money for his fiance
to come out and marry him and live there.
Absolutely. He spends about $12 on a what is it? Not a chain, but
it's like a little,
like a necklace almost.
Yeah, but I forget what they call it.
Something.
It's like a pendant.
Right.
It's the pendant without the chain. Yeah.
And we see that his rent costs $14, so he doesn't have his priorities straight. Mm-hmm. This leads me into, I did want to give a little context of pricing in the film.
Yep.
So I'll just give you, so this came out in 1923, obviously, so there's going to be inflation. For $1 of inflation, it's about $15 in today's currency.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, just a couple of items that we see throughout the film. 50 cents, that was the cost of the lunch.
The workman's lunch, what do they call it? The gentleman's lunch?
The gentleman's lunch.
Yep.
That would be about $7.50, around there, which is not bad for a lunch. It was a pretty nice sized lunch.
Yeah, I mean, it had like a meat and a potato portion.
Exactly,
and this portion.
a side, a pie, and a coffee. $12 was the pendant.
Yep.
That would be about $180.
So sterling silver.
Yes, something nice.
Yep.
$14 is how much his rent is,
Yep.
how much is due. So that's around $210.
I love that.
Which is I would gladly pay $210 for rent.
Exactly.
And then I'll talk about there's a $1,000 incentive for him near the end of the film. Mm-hmm. That would equate to around $15,000, which is insane.
Exactly.
But when you think about what marketing people make today, it's not that absurd. That's not that absurd. And it is a great stunt. It's a great, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So,
we will get to that. Don't worry.
So I think this movie has it's a really great example of early situational comedy.
Absolutely.
It plays very much almost like an hour and 10-minute sitcom.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a beginning, middle, end. It gets to where it needs to go fairly quickly.
Yep.
And it is resolved fairly quickly.
It's true.
Your main points or your longest points of action are both your rising action and your falling.
Absolutely. This movie is basically all rise, though.
Yeah, I would say that.
Pun intended.
So this whole movie is basically rising action. Climax, and I'd say your falling denouement is if you're thinking of a plot pyramid, high school English style of plot devising. That's a word.
Denouement too. Right?
Thank you.
But, smart point for you.
But your denouement is all of what, like 5 seconds?
About, yeah.
And your falling action's a good minute?
Yeah.
Your climax is there for, it hangs on the climax for a minute.
I was going to say, the climax, it keeps it there.
But I'd say the whole hour
it's
before
just
the end of the last 15 minutes, I should say, is just the complete build.
And I enjoy the situational comedy that is found in the fabric store in which he works, or the department store, rather, in the fabric department.
Yeah.
Again, talking about squeezing comedy out of everything, there's multiple scenes of him showing different fabrics, and they're different. Each time they're different, and each time they're different type of funny. Like the first one, he's trying to get out of work.
Yeah.
There's a woman who just looks at every single sample.
No, I like the first one.
Exactly, and that's not only is it funny the setup, but he knocks it down with the punchline.
Yeah, and he does a really good job at it. That if you look at that now, that's a cliche joke, but at the time, no one really made those jokes.
Right, exactly, and he's using every opportunity he can.
I love the joke of when he's being attacked by all the women there, and he's all disheveled.
Just crazy.
And his boss or the supervisor comes in and goes, "Go, I'm reporting you.
Yes.
Because you do not look right. Go to the manager. You, fill in." And as soon as he walks in, he gets all disheveled himself, and then he's like, I shouldn't have done that, which is a really funny thing.
Speaking of that scene, there's a moment of, I don't want to call it animal cruelty, but there's a moment where he mistakes a cat for a fox scarf.
Yes.
And he just kind of grabs it by the tail and throws it away. And I'm like, is that cat okay? The Humane Association was definitely not monitoring films at that time.
Exactly.
There's another instance of animal abuse that I'll touch on later, but I don't know if it's a running theme, but it was just something interesting to see. It works as a gag, but I am concerned for that long dead cat.
Right, exactly. One thing that I feel like should be addressed here, and it's a pretty serious topic. But there is actually a really big point of anti-Semitism in this film. The owners of the jewelry store or jewelry shop, the owner himself, is a very clear Jewish stereotype, or I should say old time Jewish stereotype.
Absolutely.
If you look at it, he's dressed basically as like Tevye.
Yes.
From Fiddler on the Roof. Yes. The hat, that sort of vest, the thing, the vest, kind of everything. They make him look, and he rubs his hands.
So menacingly and so lecherously.
Yeah, they try to make him in. This would be an improper term to use, but like a shyster.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of like that type of.
And then of course,
thing, yeah.
the price in the window of the chain that Harold is attempting to buy. Of course, this character tries to weasel him out of some more money.
Yep.
So that's just like the cherry on top of the anti-Semitism.
But this is a good topic to talk about, especially at the time. There was a lot of anti-Semitism.
Sure was.
And people like to say, "Oh, America's the greatest because we were never like that towards Jewish people in history or something." But we were. America was very prejudiced against people. I mean.
Honestly,
it still is.
Name a nationality or an ethnicity in America has been critical of it at some point.
Or I should say white America has been critical of it at some point.
Waspy America.
Yeah, waspy America, yeah. That's actually really good.
But that leads into one of many great editing jokes, actually, in the film, when you see... It's a very simple edit of the lunch disappearing slowly as he gets rid of his
that's one of my
change.
favorite gags in the film itself.
You see his lunch literally disappear in front of his eyes.
With his 50 cents, and he's got the last 50 cents.
And it is there are a couple great editing jokes in the film.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, there is a newspaper with a mysterious... felon.
Yep.
And the face is just a blank face, and then you see the character who is the felon start to show up in the picture. Mm-hmm. There's also there's a superimposed image on the chain when he's looking on the window. You see a superimposed image
of his fiance.
Right, exactly.
On the chain, wearing it.
It's simple, but like for the time, I'm still impressed.
Yeah, because I mean, how can you pull that off in especially 23?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It has to be all practical with film or the way it's shot, and that's just it really is impressive that they were able to like do that kind of thing.
Exactly. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at some gags.
Let's do
of the film. One of my favorites is the jacket gag, where he and his best friend evade the landlord by put the jacket up and then they bring their legs up, which I think is really funny. And then when he taps his friend to like, it's okay to come down, and you just see the legs kind of go down. That's a great one. I put the gag itself of the every time he puts a dime down, he looks at the lunch and it disappears, and he puts 2 down and he just kind of
each item slowly disappears. Yeah. There's a lot of great. Again, I said the department store is home to a lot of great comedy. I think the one that stuck with me outside of the more iconic gag was the scene where he's pretending it's the boss's office is his office. Yes. That's the one that really stuck with me when I made it.
One great piece of comedy is when he gives the guy $1 and he takes the $1 back and the kid's
an opportunist. He's truly an opportunist and a trickster.
Yeah.
And that's how he gets by.
Exactly.
And it works for him, so that's why he's not deterred from doing it some more.
One thing I'd like to bring up is one thing that I noticed is that Lloyd is a really big facial expressionist.
Absolutely.
I wrote down in my notes facial expressiveness versus Keaton.
Yes.
Buster Keaton can be so funny without doing anything.
Right, he's got the stone face, right.
Harold Lloyd is funny by being expressive.
Right.
It's two completely separate sides of the coin, but they still work.
Right.
Because of the context they're in.
Exactly. They're using what they know in the situation they're in.
His responses are very natural. It's not like it's something where it's like it's overly over the top expression wise or overly dramatic.
Right.
He naturally will roll his eyes, and it's subtle. You know what I mean? It's very conversational. Yes. Or like today, people will subtly do something, and it
still comes across without the need of dialogue.
Exactly.
To help it along most of the time. Mm-hmm. And that's what still makes it, again, like a lot of times, very evergreen.
Exactly.
Very timeless The only other gag I can set up, I mean, the other gag I can think of
is our big moment.
But it's preceded by so much comedy.
Yes.
And it's followed by so much comedy. The whole idea of the climb.
Yep.
Let's call it the climb.
The climb.
Because that's what it is.
The climb. Miley Cyrus.
Well,
that's a joke for all of you H3 watchers who saw the Ryan Johnson's video. It's the climb. Miley Cyrus.
It's a marathon of comedy. Every floor, including the base level, offers a different joke. Here, I'll go through a couple of them. You start with the police and the awning on the first floor.
Yep.
The second floor, you have the birds, where he pops the bag.
Yep.
The third one, you have the crowd, just telling him to keep going.
Yep.
The fourth one, you have the net.
Yep.
The fifth one is the old lady who's just, I forget what the old lady's doing. She just, like, shames him for, like, being there.
Yeah.
Then you have the painters pushing the board out.
Yeah.
And then, of course...
Then you have the window, also.
Yep, and the window.
Yeah.
And some of these are connected. There's some that, like, I think the lady and the painters are around the same floor, or the lady and the net are the same floor.
Yep.
And then you get the clock.
Oh, one of the most iconic scenes in any classic comedy ever is
wonderful.
The clock.
It's so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he hangs onto the clock and you're like, oh no!
Yep.
And then the hand falls and you're like, oh!
Yeah,
like,
you get so much anxiety.
Even though you know it's a comedy, it's like, oh,
you know it's a comedy, and you know
God.
that he's not on top of a building.
Right, exactly.
Yep. And people will say, and I've seen people be like, you know, it was a real building. It was not a real building.
He was
down.
still it was a set building on top of a building still, and it was still like a 3-story structure that he was on. So he was still high above the ground, maybe not as much danger as it perceives.
Exactly.
But
there was padding and there was stuff to catch him.
He's still doing some amazing stunts on such little playing space.
When he gets knocked by the wind meter and he's
at the top
stumbling.
Yes.
It's just the way he stumbles for like a good 30 seconds.
Perfect.
Is great.
After that you have the dog. I forget what the dog does.
The dog's, I know, tied to the desk.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember.
And then there's the flag, which breaks.
Yep.
And we're brought back into the clock, literally.
Exactly.
Again, squeezing every joke that he can.
And his ass gets shocked also.
It's a great set piece.
Yep.
Why not use it again?
Exactly.
One of my favorite pieces of furniture that I wish I owned is a cuckoo clock with it's exactly that. It's him hanging from the clock.
They actually have those.
Yes.
I want one.
And it's in black and white.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Next you have the mouse and the gun, the picture gun.
Yes.
Where they're shooting they're like showing a picture, or someone's painting a picture and the gun accidentally goes off.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
The other instance of animal cruelty is also here with the mouse that it sneaks into his suit and he kicks it out and it falls from his pant leg. That's a far drop for a mouse.
It is.
And
that's a far drop for anyone.
Literally. So I'm guessing if it didn't die from hitting the thing, it probably had a heart attack.
Yes.
Which is hilarious, obviously.
No. But yeah.
But it's Harold Lloyd, we forgive.
Yeah.
And of course, the drunk. There's more. Before we get to the top.
Oh, I love the drunk.
Before we get to the top of the building,
that's me. That was me in college.
Exactly.
It's just laughing at random stuff.
Yeah. But that's it. Not only do you have the tension of Harold Lloyd climbing the building, you have the tension of his friend desperately trying to switch places. To evade the cop and switch places with him. And you know as soon as you get to floor 3 and he doesn't switch out, you're like,
alright.
Harold Lloyd's climbing this whole damn building. We know that as the audience, obviously.
I wrote down in my notes, just, quote, one more floor.
I know, he keeps saying, he's like, alright, I'll meet you at the next one.
And all I can think of is, that must have had to have influenced Airplane.
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to say good luck. we're all counting on you.
It's just going violently.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's great that you have both.
Yep.
Not only is it just like you have both sources of tension there.
Exactly.
And of course you have the drunk that's also that gets introduced right before the climb.
Yep.
And he's just there for shits and gigs.
Yeah, he's just there. He kind of gets, one of my favorite little gags is when he backwards writes, "Kick me" with chalk. And he's like, "Hey, how you doing, cop?" Right. And then he comes out, and then the drunk kicks him. And then the little kid kicks Harold also. That's also a great one.
He also gets hit by the net, doesn't he? He gets the net.
Drunk, yeah, the drunk gets caught in the net, too, at the end. One of my favorite gags that not a lot of people bring up is when he leads the cop and goes like, "Oh, he's over there in that building." And then he goes to, like, shut the shed, and he's just kind of walking away, and the cop's like... And the cop's like, "Yeah, did you just try to do that?" And then he just kind of evades him with the car, which is also a really funny thing. I love... One of my favorite things about Harold Lloyd is how he makes his face look so guilty. Exactly. All the time.
And he's trying not to be guilty, but that's what makes him look even
more guilty. Just like...
And it's the lipstick and it pronounces his lips, and that's perfect because, he, like you said, he's a very facial actor.
Exactly.
The lips are like his most valuable asset aside from his eyes, I feel. And he uses them both like in tandem and very well. Mm-hmm. And then, let's get to the top. Like he does eventually. Mm-hmm. You have the weather vane.
Yeah. He ends up winning all the money.
$15,000.
Well, I feel like he would have won that twice because he had the idea.
I think the $1,000 was for the idea because he was gonna offer he offered his friend $500 to do the stunt.
Yeah, so he won $15,000.
And then his fiance meets him at the top of the building. After a nice little rope gag where Harold swings from the building, they share a nice little kiss at the top. Mm-hmm. And like we said earlier, the film kind of just ends.
It ends with a joke.
There's a gag or two before it ends. Yep. But basically, the film is, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
You had fun, didn't you?
Exactly.
And so get out.
Right.
And that's the film. It's a wonderful
There's the film. It is. I like it.
Let's do what we do. Let's talk about our favorite parts, our least favorite parts, and how it made us feel inside. So why don't you tell me your favorite part?
All right. Okay. I'll say my favorite part was. That's a tough one. It would have to be when he's in the office pretending to be the manager, and he offers the guy $1 to let him berate him.
That's wonderful.
And then pretends to berate him more, takes the $1 and lets him leave. I think that is just to me that's essential Harold Lloyd.
Right. It's a perfect encapsulation of his comedy style.
What about you, Ben?
It's hard. It's hard not to want to pick the clock. It's hard not to want to pick any of the gags that involve the building.
Exactly. Yep.
So I'm gonna pick it.
Go for it.
I won't pick the clock specifically.
Yep.
I'll probably go with, if I'm not talking the clock, I'll go with the flag. The flag. It's great because it feels safe. It does. That clock scene, you feel a sense of safety before more anxiety. Yep. It just snaps. Because there's some logic that the film decides to follow, and then there's some that doesn't.
And then it retcons that logic completely.
But then there's when he got to the flag, I'm like, that looks like a very brittle pole. And I've seen this film before, and I know he ends up back in the clock, but I still forgot that the flagpole just snaps right in half. And that's what leads him back into the clock. So I think that's probably my favorite part.
How about your least favorite part? Let's start with you for your least favorite.
Least favorite part. Aha!
That's squeaking too much.
I'm sorry. I got fidgety hands.
And I threw it on the ground.
What the fuck? My least favorite part. I feel bad because this is kind of what we talked about in Modern Times too. But like, whenever we got to the fiance, just sitting in like what looks like a backyard, reading the letter, I'm like, all right, I get it. All right, I know there has to be something that drives the plot forward. Yep. An external force that's always present. Yeah. But those scenes, especially with the fast-paced energy of the comedy, they kind of bring it to a halt. I feel like there could be better ways to incorporate comedy into that. Yeah. But essentially, it's just her reading and going, oh, and it's just exactly just humming and hawing, waiting for her husband or her fiance to return. How about you?
I did not like the character of the policeman.
Okay.
I feel like he had to be there because that's what drove the story forward. But also, if they just kind of explained to him, like, we thought you were our friend and we were gonna mess with him, he'd have been... If he was a good person, it would just been like... Okay.
Yeah.
Don't... Just be careful next time.
Yeah, but...
You know what I mean?
You know... That's comedy. That's silent comedy logic.
Yeah.
You don't have time to explain things. You just gotta run away.
Exactly. But also, you notice a lot in silent comedy is that law or powers of authority are dumb.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially with Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, especially
yes,
all of his movies. They're made to be dumb.
Yes.
Because the protagonist still has to win.
Right, exactly.
If the police were capable of doing their jobs,
if they're competent,
there would not be a film.
Yes.
If the senators and the government were competent, there wouldn't be a film.
Right.
Because they wouldn't allow that shit to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So
how to make you feel? Beat you to it, bitch.
Ooh, how to make me feel? So that movie makes me feel anxious.
Yes.
It's a very anxious feeling movie,
Absolutely.
and I feel like then it just kind of leaves you with that anxiousness. You know what I mean? It doesn't give you enough time to relax after the climax is done.
Exactly.
That you're just like, oh, okay, I guess.
Whew, he's safe, even though he's still on that building.
Yeah, he's still at the roof for some reason. What about you, Ben?
I'd have to agree. It's a feeling of anxiety, and that's where a lot of the comedy and fun comes from. You're like, oh, Harold, how'd you get yourself into this? And, oh, Harold, how the hell are you going to get yourself out of this?
Exactly.
And with the constant barrage of gags in the final 20 half hour, whatever it is, minutes of the movie, it's filled with so much tension and so much, it's just so much fun.
Exactly.
It makes me want to see it in like a packed theater. With people.
With like-minded people who will laugh and cheer.
Right, exactly. Who are also... You know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah,
He's not going to fucking fall to his death in the movie. It's not that kind of film, but it's done in a perfect way that you don't care.
Yep.
You're still having fun, you're still feeling that tension, and that's what's important, and that's what really makes the film.
So, Ben, before we wrap up, what would be a track that you think would pair really well with this film?
You joked about it earlier, but my choice for this was actually The Climb by Miley Cyrus. You know what? There is always going to be another mountain.
Yep.
And it's not about how he gets there, except it is about how he gets there.
Yeah.
It's not about what's waiting on the other side. It's about how he gets there.
It's the climb.
It's the climb. Yeah.
It's the climb.
But really,
you
know?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't dislike The Climb as a song.
Miley Cyrus is cool. She's alright.
It's an okay song.
She's okay. I think she's okay.
But it is it's obviously more like inspirational and more heartfelt. But I mean, you look at Harold Lloyd, you're like, I kind of want that guy to win, even if he is being a little shithole.
Yep, exactly. I mean, why is everybody in those old classic films kind of an asshole?
That's just the way people's is.
People's is people's does.
That's what my mama used to say.
Amen. Alright guys, thanks so much for joining us for episode 2 of Records and Reels, where we discuss Safety Last, special Harold Lloyd film that holds a dear place in our hearts.
If you liked us, give us a like, give it a share, give it a
subscribe, smack that bell,
oh god,
so you're notified when we upload again.
So YouTube doesn't fuck both of us over.
And if you really like what we do, definitely go like us on Facebook as under Funny Please.
Absolutely.
We're a part of that.
Yes, our nucleus, if you will.
Exactly. We're just a small branch of that.
Of the Funny Please.
The Funny Please brand.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, we came off an awesome show just recently, so we really love to see your all support and everything. We're going to have a lot more content up there. I know we have sketches that we're going to be showing you guys. You'll be able to get some awesome behind the scenes little things in there as well, so we're really excited to show you guys some of the stuff that we're doing.
And maybe if we're good enough at our job, we have a little bit of a treat at the end of the month, hopefully, that we can provide for you guys. Hopefully that pans out. I'm not going to say too much because maybe we fall through. Maybe we may fall through. But definitely catch us next week. Yeah. I believe we're talking Buster Keaton.
We are talking Buster Keaton's The General. next week, which is a great classic film. So if you guys would like to take the week, watch it, and then come back with us and discuss it here. Definitely talk about it in the comments. definitely talk about this film in the comments.
Talk about City Lights in the comments.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part? What's your least favorite part? How do they make you feel?
Exactly. All right. Have a great night, guys.
Good night, folks. Or good evening. Or good morning.
Bye-bye.